This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Hi, good evening. It's just a few minutes after 6 and appreciate actual crowd. So I think I want to respect your all's time for coming out tonight. I think it's probably a good idea to get going. It's just, my name is Jonathan Gertman. I'm with the NRP group. It's just as a couple of housekeeping things. We have a hybrid meeting, so we have folks joining by Google Meet as well as in the room, which is great. The chat is off. When it comes time for questions, we'll enable it so that folks can write questions into the chat or unmute or raise their hands. We have the room till 8, and then the fire department's going to kick us out. So the plan for tonight is, well, hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Great.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Just so you know, like when it reaches a certain amount, we'll just not gonna let anyone else come in.
Okay.
All right. So, and that's just for everybody's safety. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So great to see some familiar faces and meet potential future neighbors, hopefully future neighbors. I think we have a presentation. It's pretty detailed, so we're going to talk for 20 to 25 minutes just to give you a sense of what to expect, and then just have the rest of the time for question and answers. And if we finish and you don't want to ask your question in front of the group, although I don't get the sense people are shy, we'll be around. So with that, I'll sort of kick into a formal presentation. So again, Jonathan Gertman. I run the Northeast office for the NRP group. We're a vertically integrated developer, builder, property management company. We are proposing the development at what we call 6 South Street, even though it's a couple streets. As mentioned, we're in all sides of the business. So we are responsible and accountable throughout the entire process. So our goal is to sort of take this proposed project through approvals, financing, construction, and then own and manage it over the long term. So you can expect, to see NRP through the whole life cycle of this project. And, if something comes up or there's a problem or you'd like to pay a compliment, you always will know who to react to, who to reach out to. And the important part there is there's nobody to point the finger at. We're going to be accountable, and so we're responsible. Sorry, before I go on, one more housekeeping thing. There's water, in case you didn't notice, and cookies. And in case anybody's shy about being the first one to take a cookie, I already did that. So the seal has been broken on the cookies. So please help yourselves. We are a 30-year-old privately held company. We've built tens of thousands of homes across the country, including here in Massachusetts, although not yet in this area. And what we're really about fundamentally is building quality housing for people regardless of income. And what that means is that we are active in the sort of restricted, income restricted housing space all the way to the luxury market rate space and everything in between. And fundamentally, when you visit one of our properties, you really shouldn't be able to tell if it's somebody who has a lower income, middle income, if it's a subsidized or restricted housing development, or if it's just totally free market. That's really sort of the core of how we try to approach development and ownership. The project team, this is not exhaustive. So besides for NRP, I'm joined by Sean Carpenter, who's my co-developer. But wanted to highlight on the professional side, sort of the main design and engineering professionals. They're going to be working on the project. Number one is John Furman from VHB and his team. He's locally based. I think many of you know him. I think he grew up here in the town of East Hampton, city of East Hampton, excuse me. And he's going to do a lot of the talking tonight as we dive into some of the technicals. Our architect is BH&A, which is a Massachusetts-based architect with a lot of experience working through some of the housing agencies that have to help to finance this project. And then on the local land use side, I'm joined by Josh and Ellen from SS&F, and they have a lot of experience here in the city and sort of working with many of your professionals and boards here. So even though we are not local to East Hampton just yet, it was important to us that we be working with team members who could advise us sort of, as it should be done here, so that we can bring our best practices and our sort of capabilities to, something that makes sense and works here, hopefully for East Hampton. Just to give you a sense of sort of what you can expect from one of our developments, I think you'll see, natural materials, high quality finishes, community spaces on the lower right, high quality, kitchen, dining, apartment amenities, regardless of the development. So just to give you a sense, on the upper right, that's a 3-story development. So just in terms of scale, to jump ahead a little bit, that's what we are proposing for this development here tonight. So just to give you a feel. And of course, you can visit our website and see a lot of the different types of development we do. It's everything from single family homes to urban high rises. And it's really just about, looking at the local zoning. That's where we start. What is sort of the vision that's been laid out through the zoning code or a planning document for the community we're coming into. And then, what's the appropriate density, what maximizes appropriately the housing that might be built, while providing the appropriate amenities, parking, open space to make a project successful. So every development is bespoke, if you will. You all know this, but 11.5 acres, bounded on one side by South Street and on the other by Park. And of course, backing into the homes along Westview Terrace, although there's significant grade change and buffer area between the Westview Terrace homes and the property, and then the area of the property that we're going to propose to build on. It's been a long time owned by the Serio family. That's who we have a contract to purchase the property from. We were introduced to them as they decided that the time was right for them to no longer own the property. So we're working directly with them on a contract basis to purchase it. And we'll get into obviously traffic and access, but primarily looking at Park Street as the primary access for driving entrance and exits. The basic layout is 5-story individual residential buildings, 3 stories each, with a separate standalone clubhouse. We've done a lot of study already of traffic conditions, the impact that this development would have, and then obviously a lot of attention on site drainage. That was something we heard from our engineers and from city staff even before we heard it from already several of you all. So definitely understand that that's a big area of concern. Sort of really worked the site, and John's going to walk us through all of our thinking and try to show some of our work on how we landed where we are, but ultimately trying to have the least possible disturbance, the best setback from your all's homes, and sort of the most sensible layout for buildings based on the site contours and topography. And then already infiltration, detention ponds, and then maximizing the amount of trees and vegetation that we can preserve. I've already mentioned some of this, but just to get into some of the imagery, you'll see sort of a classic residential style, shingled siding and roofing with board and batten accents. We believe plenty of parking, an amenitized clubhouse with after-school space, community room, bike parking, fitness center, fully accessible ground floor units. And then this project will be, development would be fully staffed and managed by NRP management. So there would be full-time staff on site, and then after hours, emergency call for service, maintenance issues that happen overnight or on the weekends when a typical office is closed. So fully on-site managed and looked after. It's going to be fully electric, so no gas on site, designed to passive house standards and certification. A lot of that comes from the envelope, a high performance roof and siding to keep energy in that needs to be in, and heat and cool out when it doesn't want to be in. EV ready parking with chargers, and at the minimum solar ready roofs. And we're doing studies now on whether it's feasible to add solar panels, which of course is certainly my preference. As many of you know, of course, the environment for that has gotten harder over the last couple of years, but we're analyzing that now and asking for some more data from the utility company and local service providers as well. Just to give an aerial view, you start to zoom out a little bit and sort of see how the site plan comes together. You start to see some of the, this would be Westview Terrace represented on the bottom of the page. Start to see some of the buffer area, the vegetation that remains, the grade change, and get a sense of sort of the water area. Certainly want to hear, you know, we're programming a play space. It's something that we try to do, whether it's a playground, whether it's volleyball, bocce, you know, sort of depending on what, if there are preferences that we know of for the area. And then, you know, color palette materials, things like that, you know, certainly also would love to hear, you know, thoughts and feedback on. So to get into sort of the programming of it, right? Who is this sort of targeted towards in the sort of income, if you will? So it's 90 homes and affordable to households making between 30 and 80% of the area median income. So that's the, you know, nationally established income level for a typical for an average family of four. Is how it gets set, and then it gets adjusted by household size. So everything gets based off of that. So the AMI for this area for 2026 is approximately $125,000 for family of four, and then the incomes are adjusted off of that, and then the rents are set to be 1/3, less than 1/3 of your income, and that is sort of the standard definition of an affordable home, is that you're paying no more than 30% of your gross pay towards your housing costs, including utilities. These will be long-term affordable, so they'll have a use restriction that comes with the financing that's overseen by the state to ensure that they're affordable over the long term. It's not 5 or 10 years, it's 50 years at a minimum. And this advances several of the goals of the East Hampton Housing Production Plan and helps meaningfully move the city towards the 10% 40B affordable housing goal. And just to, you know, put some of these into a sort of what does that mean on a take-home pay? So there'll be units for those earning as much as 1/3 of the area median income, and those up to 80% of the area median income. But the average and the bulk of the units sit right in that bold slice of the 60% area median income. So for a single person, $55,000; for a couple, $63,000. And so on. And you can, you know, start to imagine, you know, who it is in the town that, you know, makes places like East Hampton go from a service or public service side, starting out, you know, whether it's entry-level civic service jobs or retail, et cetera, that qualify for this kind of housing. And, you know, how rare it is to have housing, just to go back for a second, you know, brand new housing that has rent starting as low as under $750, and then some, you know, some serious rents up over $2,000 for 2 and 3 bedrooms if you're at that upper income. The key piece of this is the rents also only move by a very limited amount every year. So as the median income moves, we're restricted as the owner by how much we can charge. So it's not, oh, here's the starting teaser rent and then it's going to go up 20% next year. It's locked into a slow growth as incomes grow. And if incomes go down, the amount of rent that we can charge doesn't move, freezes. So there's long-term predictability and sort of like slow, predictability, I think was the right word, built into that. So with that, I want to turn it over to John from VHB to get into some of the site specifics, and then I'll be back up for questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. You just use the up and down everything?
Side to side, yeah.
Side to side, okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Furman. I am the Regional Office Manager for VHB Engineering in Springfield, and I am also the engineer of record for this project. For this project, VHB has been tasked with verifying the existing additions, doing the existing condition survey, environmental review, and site plan design, which includes utility, stormwater, and layout. Jonathan has already shown you what the final layout is, and I think it's important that as we go through to show you how we got there. It wasn't the first concept that we developed. In the next few slides, we'll walk through that. So this is the initial concept that when NRP decided to proceed with the property. This is what we were presented with, and this is was the basis for the engineering firm developing our scope of work, and also for NRP to develop the programming for the site. What you can see is that the intent was to have all the buildings kind of clustered in the central area with a very large stormwater management pond along the backside. So we took this and we developed it into our next stage, which is what you see here. This concept, at this point, we had some preliminary test pits performed, and we knew that we were going to be encountering some ledge in some areas. So what this concept did was stick with the NRP layout, continuing to have the buildings kind of in a sense of community, kind of circling each other, and then basically parking areas scattered around the site, and then having a slope down to existing grade. What this did was it basically cleared the majority of the site. There was not going to be any natural vegetation left. It required bringing in fill of about 20 to 25 feet of fill. This roadway was approaching a higher percentage. We were up around 10, 11%. And we just did not see this as a development that could be easily built. So we took a different strategy, which led us to concept 3, which put the buildings in a more linear perspective. You can see them here. If you're familiar with the property, you know the existing house, which is right here, is set on top of a knoll. And the elevation difference between the house and the parking areas in this scenario is about 28 feet. So there is some significant grade change on this property. So in the previous scenario, we were basically filling all that up to that level. In this area here, the fill has been cut down drastically. The buildings are set along the perimeter, and the parking is basically pulled in front of the buildings, with the community center in the middle. As we reviewed this, it was developing an earthworks plan that was more favorable. It had less impact, but the buildings were acting as retaining walls along the back. So the abutters on that side would basically see large concrete backs of buildings. So the final concept is one that you see here, where we flip the buildings. We brought them into the interior of the site. We put the parking area on the outside. You can see this area here. Are you seeing this when I move it? Yeah. So this area here is basically remaining. We're going to demolish the building, the garage, and the 2 sheds that are on it. And then we're going to revegetate this area to jumpstart it back as a forest. The forest that is in this area here, you can kind of see this will all be remaining as forest. You can see that right here. We are removing the forested areas down here for the entrance roadway, grading, and stormwater management. But we have a landscaping plan that is going to replant that to provide buffers and shielding. We get into the next plan, which is our grading plan, and I can kind of go back and forth between them. You can see the grades kind of popping in and out. So this is one of the main detention basins in the bottom corner here. We have 2 more, and then we have a series of stormwater management infiltration systems located under the paving. We are regrading a portion of the back of the site so that we can create a flat plateau for the buildings themselves. But again, this area at the top here and everything at the bottom is going to remain vegetated. From the CPA meeting that Jonathan attended, we got some feedback from some of the abutters. There's some stormwater issues and some surface water issues that you are experiencing. So what we've intended to do was, our stormwater management design is very comprehensive. It's one of the most complicated designs that we've put together. But knowing that this is the high site of the high area of the property, everything from here flows down towards your butters in the existing conditions model. So any surface water that is not absorbed basically flows off the property. If you envision the site, you cut it and you stand it up and you look at it, this is all going to remain here, but all this water will no longer go this way. This water is being captured and it's being redirected. The same with the water that is under our developed area. That was all formerly going towards your backyards. Now that's being captured as part of the pavement system, and then we're treating it and then we're infiltrating that. So the areas that are now draining towards your backyards are very reduced. They are not, they're a fraction of what they were. So just the development alone, our model shows that the flow going off into these areas will be substantially reduced over what you're experiencing now. We've had a very comprehensive soil testing program done. The geotechnical engineers, I think, have been out 3 times doing various tests, probing for ledge, probing for seasonal high groundwater, and categorizing the soil for us. We have a tremendous amount of data which helped us in the designs of these systems. East Hampton has a requirement to be 3-foot separation between either a restrictive layer or the seasonal high groundwater in the bottom of your infiltration systems, which we are either meeting or exceeding. So we're not violating that setback requirement. As of today, when we pushed the button on the stormwater model, we were matching the flows coming off the site on both corners, touch points. And we're just kind of fine tuning the site plan designs right now for submittal to the planning board. On the utility perspective, the site connection to the sewer in Park Street is a gravity connection. Because of the ledge, what we've done is we've had all the buildings are gravity, but we direct these 4 to an on-site pump station located in this area, which then pumps it to a gravity system in the driveway. And we're doing that so we can limit the amount of ledge that we encounter. We don't really want to remove ledge. We don't want to, not only from a cost perspective, but an annoyance factor. So having the pump station greatly reduced it. The force main doesn't have to be as deep as a gravity main. It just has to be shallow enough so that it doesn't freeze. And it will convey the sewage from these units to this gravity main, which will then flow down the driveway and connect into the sewer. Into the sewer system. The city's interceptor sewer is basically in this roadway right here, and that is the main sewer trunk line for this area. The sewer in Park Street is a 6-inch diameter sewer. We've confirmed with the city DPW that there are no capacity issues there. We have a 6-inch pipe coming out our driveway, connecting into a 6-inch pipe in the roadway. Good engineering practice tells us that we should basically upsize the pipe downstream from our connection. So the 100 feet of sewer piping between our new sewer manhole and the interceptor sewer, we're going to be upsizing that from a 6-inch to an 8-inch. And that will match the size of the interceptor sewer. That one increase alone in size generates additional capacity of about 670,000 gallons per day. So it is, we've run the hydraulics on it. It's a good investment as far as making sure we don't have any sewer capacity issues. So that's going to be included as part of our program. On the water side, you may have seen us out there a month and a half ago blowing out fire hydrants with the water department. We did some fire flow testing and we have a residual fire flow pressure of 70 PSI. When you work that up, the elevation to the area at the top of here, our pressure is slightly too low. So we're going to be having to incorporate a fire pump into our community building, which will pressurize the sprinkler systems in the residence. The water department is requiring a loop through the site. So we'll be connecting on South Street, running it through and then connecting back onto basically the same 10-inch main in Park Street. We're running an 8-inch main through the site, and which will then give us domestic and fire suppression systems. We've talked about stormwater. I think we're in great shape as far as where we are. We comply with the city's requirements and the stormwater management policy of the DEP. The site itself as a whole is 100% compliant with all aspects of zoning. We're not asking for any relief from any of the zoning ordinances or any of the regulations that are in the zoning code. So it's a pretty straightforward project. The last thing is traffic. We have a comprehensive traffic study, which we've done, and will be included as part of the submittal. From the perspective of the traffic generation, the unit itself using the Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE, land use codes, affordable housing, and then applying it by the square footage and number of units we have here, this is expected to generate 475 trips per day in a 24-hour period. During the peak hour, I believe it's 26 during the peak hour in the morning and 36 in the afternoon. From a conservative approach, the peak hour on Park Street correlates to the dismissal time of the Mountain View School. So what we did as a conservative approach is we applied our new traffic to that peak hour, even though most of our peak hour is going to come at night when this time when people are coming home from work. And the model shows us that there are no, the level of service will be maintained as is currently out there. And there are no areas which need to be mitigated offsite. So from a civil perspective, transportation, environmental, let me talk about environmental. We had our environmental engineer walk the site. There are no resource areas located on the site that are regulated by the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act or the Massachusetts Rivers Act. We were notified when we were doing cell testing that one of the abutters had thought we were in a wetland and called the conservation agent. She called me. We had our environmental person come back out, looked at the site and confirmed that we were not. There was a low area there that water had pooled, but it isn't there long enough given the soil conditions to create a wetland or any type of vernal pool. So our memo that we were put together with our submittal will basically say that we've walked the site. There are no environmental resource areas we need to really deal with. And I guess the last thing that I'll talk about is that the forest area on site. Using the AutoCAD file on the survey, there are about 6.8 acres of woodland on the site. And I'm also including the rows of trees that are along the driveway on 215 Park Street. Not really woodlands, but it shows us a canopy on our site. So we are removing just over 3 acres of woodland from the development, which you can see in this area here. I mentioned that we are reforesting this area here, and our landscaping plan shows what we intend to do there. That is about 1.9 acres of reforesting. So as a trade-off between what we're removing and what we're keeping and restoring, we're very close to having a balance on those two areas. So that is all I have. Oh, sidewalks. Yes, thank you. So we have a sidewalk along the driveway coming on the, I guess, be the south side. That sidewalk will not be ADA compliant because the driveway itself is 7%, and the maximum slope on a sidewalk for ADA perspective is 5%. So again, this graphics was taken before we had a chance to update it, but we have a sidewalk in this area here, which is our 5% ADA compliant, leads to the sidewalk on South Street, which comes down the traffic circle and then connects into the sidewalks going into Mountain View. We are proposing to have a crosswalk for those that do not need ADA compliant sidewalks. Across Park Street, it will be properly signed with advanced warnings and painted markings on the pavement. Did I forget anything?
I'm sure the crowd will remind you.
Okay.
Outdoor
That's
lighting.
it from my perspective.
Lighting, outdoor lighting.
Yes, so we have a lighting plan that is underway. We expect it back tomorrow. The city ordinance requires a 15-foot maximum height on lighting, which we are adhering to. The light fixtures will be placed along the outside perimeter of the parking facing in, and we've asked for them to have shields on the back so that they don't shine into the abutters. The elevation, as Jonathan said, the elevation difference between the two, the backyards and the parking lot is somewhere in the lines of 20 to 30 feet, depending on where you are. So the trees are remaining there, but the parking area is going to be up in the canopy of the trees. It's not going to be down at the base. So in addition to the shields we're putting on, the canopies of the trees that are there will provide some shielding as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Do you want me to moderate, or how do you want to do this? Just one second.
Well, we have Evan, who's helpfully helping us with the tech. And maybe we'll do like one in the room, one on or we could do all in the room and then all online. But so why don't we open the chat? And then also I see people are figuring out the hand raising function. So you can either type it in or we see some hand raisings, and then maybe we'll do this lady and then Jane Hobbs and then go from there. How does that sound? Okay.
Hi, I'm Donna Chappella. My question has to do with, we're talking about the water systems and doing some kind of processing with some of the water, pressurizing it and so forth. What is that going to sound like to people in the area?
You won't hear it unless there's a fire, because that pressurizing system is only for the fire suppression system. It's located inside the community building in it, so it's basically a pump. If you've heard a pump ever running, it's electrical. There's no real mechanical gears or anything on it. It's just a pump. It has a hum, but it's inside the building. So I doubt you will ever hear it.
There's nothing exterior that would have that same sort of pump.
There will be mechanical equipment outside. I'm sure there's going to be mechanical systems for the buildings, but I'm not sure where that's on the civil engineering item. Do you know anything about that?
The like air handling units, will sit next to and around the buildings. But those are all electric, so it's pretty quiet. And, like probably everybody has in their yard.
The one thing from a noise perspective, even in this view, is that this high point is always still going to be here. That elevation is about 280, and the parking elevation is 262. So there's 22 feet between here and here vertically. That nothing better than a sound attenuator than actual land and trees. So
I think Jane Hobbs, had her, if you want to unmute.
She
And,
put her down.
Oh, okay.
Emily's.
okay, if you come back. So maybe Emily, if you want to unmute and if you have a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Emily. I lived for 7 years at 215 Park Street. And for those of you who aren't aware, that is the house that is underneath the new road that's proposed there. Please point that out. Thank you. So I moved out in December of this past year. So as someone who has pulled out of that driveway, which is where the road is proposed, I can tell you that the traffic is a major concern, and that was just for 2 cars and 1 family turning left or right out of that street. So I appreciate that you are doing and have done a traffic study, but I'd like to know what your plans are for that, more details about the crosswalk and or a traffic light, because I think it would be absolutely necessary.
We have no plans for a traffic light. Our traffic study does provide a warrant analysis, which is needed for the determination of whether a traffic study or a traffic light is needed or not. And I do not believe the project meets any of the warrants that require a traffic light, but I will confirm that. As far as the crosswalk goes, the crosswalk will be located south of the driveway. We have our sidewalk coming down to an ADA ramp, which is just required because we're entering a public way. We come across the street, and then we have another sidewalk cut into, or another ramp cut into the sidewalk on the opposite side of the streets. So we have advanced warning planned, which is yield triangles, distance from the crosswalk to that is in accordance with the manual and uniform traffic control devices. We also have proposing high visibility pedestrian signs, crossing signs. And so high visibility is that the sign itself is a fluorescent pattern that reflects in the light. And then you add a graphics on the pole so they can see that as well. And then I believe there's even one more advanced warning sign in front of that.
Okay. And last question, just to confirm, because I don't believe it was mentioned, the two homes, existing homes, 215 Park Street and 6 South Street will be demolished. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I'd like to just point out for the record that those were stated as being dilapidated, and that is absolutely not true. There are active renters in each property at this time and have been for many years. So just like to say that I'm very sad to see this proposal, but I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us as a community.
And if you would share your name with us.
Wilbur Quinn. I live on Westview. And if I may, I'd like to point out here that this is a slope and Park Street here is a slope. It dips here. So the visibility from West Park Drive is very difficult. I mean, you really have to get yourself out there and look far down and wait and see, because you will not see any vehicles that are down at the bottom of that dip. There's just not enough visibility. So this whole area, which, you know, I walk down here and then I go down Button Road or down to the school. So I cross this area here at West Park, and, you know, it's all kind of the same topography, and it's really difficult visually to see what's coming.
Our traffic study does have sight distances, which are based on either the posted speed or the actual speed of the avenue. And in both cases, we exceed what is required on that. But I'll make a note of that and have our traffic engineers go back out and check that again.
The distance, you say there's a certain amount of distance, that sight distance that is allowed by the state. Just from a practical point of view, when you're crossing that street, you look up there, no cars coming. You begin to walk across, all of a sudden a car shows up, and you better hustle because you won't make it. So,
So, thank you. We'll go back and we'll check it. And let you moderate.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Matt Drake. I live at 213, which is next to 215.
This one here?
Yes. There is a row of pine trees between the two properties that I'm not sure which parcel that they actually land on. But I kind of want to know, do you intend to cut down that row of pine trees?
I can't specifically tell you right now because I don't have the data with me. We are doing some clearing in that area, but we would certainly not take down anything that's not on our property. I will tell you that I looked at the landscaping plan, and these yellow lines here represent grading that we're doing. So we're basically cutting into the slope to make a plateau for the roadway. Once that's all stabilized and revegetated, so it's a lawn area, our landscape plan does have plantings along this property line. So if the pine trees are on your property, they won't be taken down. If they're on ours, they most likely will. And then either way, there'll be additional plantings along that property line.
Well, right now they're a significant source of shade from summer sun. If they cut down, even if they're replaced, they're not going to do that job for decades. So it's going to negatively impact us.
We'll give you our we'll make sure you have our contact information before you go, and we can probably pull that detail.
Okay.
I just wanted to reinforce what was said earlier about the parking, and I'm wondering, just for safety, because when you pull out of West Park with the traffic coming, I'm just wondering how much distance, safety-wise, at night, if you're going to have your crosswalk and there's cars coming out there, there's not a lot of wiggle room. So I'm just wondering if you've looked, at night traffic and visibility with your plans. Or
Unfortunately, the traffic standards don't differentiate between night and day. Again, I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm just looking at what our traffic engineers do. But I will go back and task them to look at that to make sure that there isn't something that we overlooked.
It just seems like a lot happening in a small amount of space, so
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe this person and then counselor.
Hi, this is less targeted towards the engineer. Sorry, more for you.
That's okay. I'm all right with it.
My name is Moshe. I'm a resident in East Hampton on Main Street. I'm just wondering, the prices for rent, are those, I'll let you bring those back up.
Sure.
Are those including utilities or are utilities separate from those costs?
These are inclusive of utilities. So then we get provided we do an estimate that the state approves of utilities, and then that gets deducted from the rent. So this is inclusive of utilities.
Which utilities are included out of curiosity, if you have access to that?
So we typically the resident will pay directly for electric, which includes heat, hot water. We don't charge for sewer, typically. And in some communities of this nature, like you have to pay for appliances. That's a weird old thing. We don't have that. So, but we're proposing typically the tenant will pay for electric and hot water, and then that gets deducted off of this rent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is the inclusive number. And this, this is set every year. But that's, in today's dollars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is okay, Matt. Can you go back to the other slide with the layout? So our city has had a lot of pedestrian car problems. There's a lot of dangerous crosswalks in our city. It's a big issue. This is going to be a big crosswalk area. If you've looked and seen down at Williston put in like a rapid beacon flashing crosswalk. So people go up to it and touch it, right? And then it has like lights on the ground that go so cars can really see the residents. We've had incidents of people actually getting hit by cars in other areas of our city because we don't have a lot of lighting on the roads. Would you consider doing something like that instead of just a regular crosswalk? I know it's not necessary, but it would really be really helpful to the community.
That's desired. I mean, I don't have any objection. I don't know if there's like a city plan, like a DPW standard for when that would or wouldn't happen.
There is not, but we can evaluate. There are a number of options that we can do between just basic signage and something illuminated. So we'll see what we can come up with.
I think check out the one at Williston because I think that's the best one.
Very familiar with it.
So maybe we'll take this question and then go to Jay Thomas online.
So back to the rent, you're charging, the low end, how many apartments would be designated?
Sure.
The lowest?
So the about a little more than half. So the average sits at this 60%. There's a big chunk at the 50 and 60. Call it rough numbers, 70% of the project, and then about 15% at the 30%, and about 15% at the 80%. So it's kind of a barbell, if you will. And then at each income level, the unit types are distributed, the 1, 2s, and 3. So we're not like sequestering any unit type to any income. I think Jay Thomas, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
I actually have 3 questions. So the first 2 are for finance. And then the last one is about the construction itself. So the first one, finance, is I'm just curious, as for your company, it's pretty big, right? And I was wondering what your company's net profit is. because you're coming to East Hampton asking for $500,000 in CPA funds, which for you guys probably is a drop of water in a bucket. But for our community, it's huge, for especially a community of 16,000, that is our taxpayers' money. So I want to know is what your net profits are for your company all around. And why is it necessary for you guys to go for CPA funds to get a tax break if you are making quite a bit of millions of dollars? That's a twofold question.
Under the,
Okay, do you want to give me all your questions?
And then the last question I have is due to the snow removal and runoff. What will you be doing with all that snow? Because it's going to take quite a bit of plowing up there. It's actually going to have to intercede onto the main highway, main road at one point. What are your plans for that in the water runoff?
That's gonna be your question. Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks. Appreciate those questions. And I think there's a few sort of, I think, additional questions maybe in there that I'll just take a shot at answering. So the first question is, I actually don't know. We're a privately held company and I'm not an owner of the company. So they actually don't tell me what our profits are. But I think the point taken that we're a for-profit, active company. So just to sort of take that a step further, and forgive me if some of you got this already at the CPA, but it may be a little redundant. But basically, so just to sort of back up a little bit, the way, so typically if, again, some of you have heard this, so forgive me. But, when most of us buy property or real estate or invest in real estate, the way we make money is you build or buy something and then, try to, through construction and increase rents, create value and make that property be worth more than you built or bought it for. That's kind of how market rate development works. You buy a property, you build a property, and at the end of the day, when you've rented it up, its value is more than it costs, and that's how you make money. Because affordable housing is restricting those rents, we are building something here that actually has an economic value that's lower than what it costs. So obviously Jay Thomas, if you wouldn't mind muting. Okay, I think we just muted you. Cool. So how do you square that circle? And the way they do it is that we created in this country in 1986 a program called the housing tax credit, the low income housing tax credit, which allows for investment in housing that isn't going to produce that economic return. And in exchange, the people who invest in these projects get to take a discount on their federal taxes. It has nothing to do with the East Hampton property taxes, or even the state of Massachusetts then created their own state tax credit. So it does come to Massachusetts, but the overall program is all about your federal taxes. And we make money by developing and building the property. So just no secret, certainly, about that. As far as the CPA, I know there's a robust discussion, and I don't want to speak on behalf of your CPA funds, but my understanding of the CPA is that, this was something, it's a state program that you all opted into some decades ago, that every dollar that gets invested by East Hampton gets matched, I believe 70 cents on the dollar, by the state. So you're leveraging state money for what you spend on it. Some portion of it goes to preservation, some portion of it goes to, I think, recreation, and then a portion of it goes to housing. We are not the only developers proposing affordable housing in the state. Many developers are trying to build affordable housing all over, and we are trying to get an allocation from the EOHLC, the State Housing Authority, State Housing Administration, rather, to allocate their share of housing credits to this project. That's a competitive process. And in order to be competitive in that, the state has said, we want to see a commitment from the locality towards the project. If you have a city or a community that's going to contribute money to a project through CPA funds, through a break in fees, or just an allocation of general funds, that project is going to be more competitive. So as a share of the project, we have requested to the CPA a 1% match on the overall development cost of the project. They can choose to allocate that money or less. We hope they will allocate some because that makes the project competitive and viable. But fundamentally, any dollar that the CPA, that comes from the East Hampton, I mean, one way to think about it is that $500,000, let's call it, is really $200,000 roughly of East Hampton money, and you're leveraging not only the 70-cent match from the state, but then all the state tax credits, all the state subsidies, and then the federal tax credits that if they don't come here are going to go someplace else. So in a way, like for that $200,000, you're getting, this is a $45 or $50 million project. You're getting that benefit of all those funds flowing in to help make East Hampton more affordable. So really, it's losing $44.8 million that's going to go someplace else because those funds are limited. So it's like a 99.3% leverage, yes, because of the match on those CPA funds. So obviously I have a point of view on this and I'm spinning that in a very specific way, but roughly that math should check out. That's my pitch. Oh, snow.
So we only get reimbursed 30%.
Sorry. Oh, okay. As I said, that's my understanding. If I'm off on that, I'm not saying authority. That's what I understood at the last CPA meeting. But I do want to make sure we answer a snow question and then the other folks get to ask questions.
From the snow perspective, the snow removal will really be very similar to what you do for your own home. We have sidewalks in the roadway. It will be privately owned, but it's going to be plowed very similar to the way a road is plowed. They're going to shove the snow to the left or the right. As they're going up the roadway, if they go to the right, there's a shelf there along the roadway. The snow's just going to stay there. It'll melt, go into the drainage system. Then they have to come through after the plowing is done with snow blowers, and they have to clear the sidewalk so that they get blown into the side further, like you would if you do your own home. For the parking areas, there is an area at the end over here where we can get some substantial storage here. Again, this is out of date. This retaining wall is a lot smaller than it's shown right here. So you have this area here. If all of these things get filled up because of the snowstorm that we have, like last year, and there's no room to store it, then it will have to be removed and deposited somewhere else. And that's standard for pretty much any other development.
Just go to voices that haven't been heard yet.
Question for both of you. I'll start with you since you're at the podium. The trees that are abutting the West Park Drive homes that are on quite a grade, is there any plan to evaluate those and make sure that they are safe and not going to fall on any of our homes as these properties change hands?
There are not.
Okay, how would we best communicate with the property if we have concerns about trees on that grade?
On it. There
Current concerns?
It's a hell of a grade and it's overhanging my bedroom, so.
I'm sure the owners would love to hear from you, but we're going to share our contact information.
Okay, that sounds great. My second question is more so about the estimated property tax revenue that this project will bring into the town.
So going off memory, but I believe this would bring up about $180,000 to $200,000 a year of tax revenue. We're not seeking you guys have a fund name for it.
Yeah.
Or any other kind of abatement. So we'll be assessed as any property will be assessed.
Okay, is that net additional accounting for what those homes previously brought in?
No.
Okay.
I would have to check what the taxes are on what they're currently paying.
Perfect, appreciate it.
Sure.
Everybody has a couple of questions probably, but so mine are a little different, Fred. So your company, you said earlier that NRP throughout the life cycle of the project would maintain it. On your website, you've developed over 69,000 units,
sure,
but you currently manage only 32,000, sure, which leads me to believe that the rest have been sold.
Sure.
So if you sell more than half of them, May I ask what your intention might be
Sure.
for this one?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you. So we started in the affordable housing world. As I mentioned, we now have a pretty significant like market rate business. That business has very different sort of economics. That is very much a build, create value, and then sell to an investor that sort of doesn't want to take development risk, but wants to own a stabilized property. So most of the market rate developments that we build, we sell pretty quickly. On the affordable side, we have a minimum 15-year commitment to own and operate those properties. So we will own and operate it for at least 15 years. We've been around for a while. Some of those properties are past that commitment period, and some of them we have definitely sold. So it doesn't mean that the affordability requirements stay with the property. So somebody who is taking on those requirements, but that's the answer. So it's, yeah.
So then when you sell them, because you also said that they are staffed and managed by NRP employees. So obviously if it gets sold, it's not managed by you anymore, managed by whomever you sell it to.
Yep.
Do you have any vetting process for who the companies are that purchase, or are you just to the highest bidder?
On fundamentally, if they are interested and have the means, they have to get approved. So they have to get approved by all the folks who have these underlying regulatory agreements, the things that we're bound by, they have to be bound by. So ultimately the state agencies have to approve them. But once it's sold, we don't have oversight over, how it's managed. So there is that, after 15 years, there is a potential that it won't be us. That's for sure.
Maybe I can just
Sure.
expand on that. I'm Ellen Fryman. I'm with Shad and Fenton in Springfield and Northampton. Also available. Give you contact information if you have any questions. And I do have almost 40 years working in affordable housing, and it's very, very highly regulated at the state level when you're using state funds, which is what the case here. And they make it extremely difficult to sell. And you do have to go through all approval process, and they make sure that whoever is taking over is vetted and has lots of experience. And so, and this is for decades long, because these affordable housing restrictions are on, like permanently. So, so no one really has to worry about someone else coming in and mismanaging. The state really oversees that, and they're very careful about that process.
Then an engineering question. You said this is the most complicated design you have for stormwater in your company's history, I think you said?
I didn't say that. I just said it's a complicated design.
You said it was the most complicated one you've made.
Yeah,
You said
not in the company history.
in your history.
No, it has no history, just a complicated design.
You said it was the most complicated one. I'm just trying to get a
Do you want
scope.
to restate the level of complication?
It is a complicated system.
Okay, so what you said before was incorrect?
Yes, I'll retract that statement.
Anything else anybody wants to retract while we're here? I mean, seriously, I'm just wondering. What
And
else did
so,
you say?
and your concern is, and therefore the concern is it's complicated and it will fail? I mean, is that?
I think that's probably a fair connection. The more complicated something is, the more likely it is to fail, yeah.
No, they fail because they're not maintained. So as part of the construction documents that are filed, there is a specific set of requirements on how to treat them during construction, what to do and what not to do with them. There is an operation and maintenance plan on how they get maintained and inspected. Certain requirements of the system have specific inspection deadlines that they have to go to twice a year, 4 times a year. And then there's maintenance that has to be performed on them. So if they are inspected and maintained, which we expect that they will be, there should be no issue.
Thank you. Would you guys, last question for me. Would you guys be amenable to improving any of the existing city infrastructure that's not part of your plan to help the people feel a little better about the project? For example, the sidewalk that goes from the exit of your area all the way to the traffic circle is in pretty bad shape. Do you typically, would your company be amenable to making that sort of an infrastructure improvement the way for example, much bigger project, but when MGM came in Springfield, they redid 5 miles worth of 91 and exits and entrances, stuff like that, as part of their project, so that it fit into the city a little better. That's one example. There could be others that come up. Is that something your company would do?
Look, I don't want to rule anything out. I'm also hearing that there's an existing crossing issue that we're gonna help to deal with. I'm hearing that there are sewer upgrades that we're, proposing, so I'm not ready to say yes, but I'm, not ruling anything out. We have a long way to go. We have to go to the planning board. We have to hear what they have to say. So just let's go, or sure, we'll take a few more in the room and then we'll come to, I see AP and Lois. We see you. Bear with us.
Yeah, we were listening at home, but I just came from work and I still may have missed it at the beginning, but I saw a lot of units. If it's average of 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know what you're talking about for kids, and stress on the schools, as well as the water pressure up the street and the stress on the sewage system from putting that concentration of wastewater into the sewers at that area of town.
Yeah, so John did speak to the sewer and water pressures, and we can do that again. It is 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, the vast majority being 1s and 2s.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just talking about before the farm up at Galls was turned into a lot of houses. The water pressure was real good upstream. And which pump is it going to come from, the pump well, or is it going to come from a
Yeah,
gravity
maybe do you
well,
want to
the water
speak to the,
feed? And what is that going to do when you add another 90 units uphill? You said the only pump that there's going to be there is for fire. So that's going to be pressurized by the town, all that water system for all those buildings?
No.
I'm gonna let John,
Yeah.
maybe just review that whole
Yeah.
section again, if you would.
So as far as let's start with the sewage demand. So we calculate the sewage generation rate using a code 310 CMR 15, Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulation. And it basically says that for a single family resident, sewage in Massachusetts, sewage is generated at a rate of 110 gallons per day per bedroom. That's standard throughout the state. So at 165 bedrooms, which are planned here, the sewage generation is, I think, 18,150 gallons per day. That is an average through the day. You have peaks in the morning or peaks at nighttime when people are cooking, taking showers, and in the day that may trail off to nothing. But in average, that's what you can expect. Water is 90% of the sewage that is, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Of the water consumed on a building, 90% of that goes to sewage. So you take 10% of that with you, either through drinking and taking it off property. So to calculate the water demand, you take that sewage rate and you multiply it basically by 1.1111, and the water usage for this development is projected, I think, at 20,670 gallons per day. So we provided that information to the DPW. The utility coordinator reviewed it, and he said he did not see any capacity issues upstream anywhere else as far as that connection. To address your
Showers in the plains, because in the plains, in the morning, in the evening, you have no water pressure.
I can go back and I can check with them again. As far as the pressurized thing you're talking about, we did fire flow tests out there, and we did a test on South Street and we did a test on Park Street, and both were very consistent. The flow meter was pegged at 1,600 gallons per minute when you open up a fire hydrant full force, and the residual pressure at the reading was 70 PSI. So you have great pressure and flow on both streets. The problem is we are elevated about 70 feet from those two connection points. So as you go up in elevation, we start to lose flow and we start to lose pressure. So because of that, the fire protection engineers are saying that in order to provide adequate pressure for a fire system, we have to have an on-site sprinkler fire pump is basically what it is. That's going to be located in our community building. So the loop we're constructing will have a thing going into there and it's isolated just for us. It's not adding pressure to the system. It's never going to be used because we're not anticipating having any fires in this area. So
That part is just the daily usage of the water and
Yep.
accessing your showers and whatever you
That doesn't get pumped.
and the
that
pressure.
is not planning on getting pumped.
And also, I'm sure somebody else already asked a question about the stress on the schools. You know, they're talking about losing teachers, this and that and everything else. If all those units have 2 kids per household, 1 or 2 kids per household, what's that gonna do to the class sizes in the schools?
To flip that one too.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, we just paid an extra.
Serious issue.
Our taxes just went up 20% because this town is millions of dollars in the hole all of a sudden.
All right, your
And
city
so-
councilor is offering to step up on this one.
Yeah,
So.
so right now our schools are not at capacity. So the schools are built to handle way more kids than are actually in the school. And we all know that they're new schools. So the classrooms are not at capacity. What happens is when you have more students, the school department gets more money from the state that helps to pay for those students. And then they use that money if they need to have 1 more new classroom, they hire another teacher and they have a new classroom. There's room to do that. So the kids are not going to be in classrooms that are way bigger than what they are now, because depending on the number of kids that come in, it's actually a good thing for us to have kids come in, because we're losing kids, right? Like we lose kids to school choice, or people just aren't having that many children right now. Yeah, so it's actually advantageous for the schools to be getting more students. We're low on students.
So I just want to go to the chat for a few and then come back to you, sir, if that's okay. So Lois asked about bike lanes. We had not covered that. So we'll do that. And then AP's been waiting for a while. So maybe we'll take the bike lane question, then AP's question, and then come back to the room.
Sure. So the question is up on the screen. It's basically said, how will the increased traffic on Park or South affect bike riders and their safety? And are there any bike lanes planned? So there are no bike lanes planned. The roadway cross section that is there is not wide enough to support bike lanes as would be a current Mass DOT standard. I believe in that area, it's basically a share the road type of design as it is through most of East Hampton. The increase, anytime you have an increase in traffic, there's always a potential for an increase in encounters. But with proper signage on the roadway, at our intersection, in advanced signage for the driveway, people aren't expecting the driveway to be there, so we're including advanced signage on that. We're not anticipating to be any issues, but we're noting that question and we'll go back and we'll task our traffic engineers to address it.
AP, if you want to unmute and please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anna Paskowski, 211 Park Street. Thank you for a civil conversation, my community and the developers. 2 points. One, on school crossing, there's going to be more kids crossing the street, not just grown-ups who are smart at crossing the street. So I raised that concern as well. Signs or suggestions. Anybody who's been on Park Street knows that. Also, as we are talking about property as an investment, this is an awesome point. You're asking us to invest our local, state, and federal dollars in this project. However, the exchange really seems to me that it's for 50 years we get affordable housing. And then it seems like it's the market. There are other options like community land trusts, community development corporations. That's not your expertise. That's not what you guys do. That's something as a community we could consider. My question is it correct that after 50 years that you or whomever owns this property, you could abandon the affordable housing structure and create market or luxury condos, whatever you want with that as the landowner? Thank you.
Sure. So technically, yes, the restrictions typically last for up to 50 years. At that point, you have a 50-year-old property that typically needs some love. What we commonly have seen as the industry has gone on and as these projects have aged is we renew the affordability restrictions, we get new rounds of tax credits, and that money is used to rehabilitate the projects and bring them up to new standard. That's not a guarantee. That's a very often course of action. But yes, there is a possibility that in 50 years, again, you have 50-year-old buildings, they will need investment, and it is possible that somebody abandons the affordability restriction, for sure. You had a question in the back. Yes, hi.
Yeah, hi. My name is Vadim Solchinsky. I live at 10 South Street. That road up at the top, I abut that. So I'm just right to the left of it as we see it.
Cool.
And I just wanted to say that I support this project. I think it's great. We desperately need more housing in Western Mass. We need desperately more housing in Massachusetts. Obviously, the devil is in the details, and that's meetings like this are great for trying to figure out all the best drainage and crossings and all that stuff absolutely should be discussed. But I just wanted to point out that generally the questions are going to be negative, just because anyone who's satisfied is not going to doesn't have a question. But I think we need housing, and honestly, any way we can get it is great. I would just say that to the kids question in particular, I have a vested interest myself. I have a toddler and I have one on the way. I would love to see more kids. No, none of my neighbors whom I love, and no, none of them have kids. I don't know any kids in the neighborhood. We bought $100 worth of Halloween candy. First time we moved it, first Halloween we saw it, we gave away 0 candies. Nobody trick or treats up the street. They go to the Plains neighborhood, something else.
Westview Terrace.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hope tons of kids move into it, and the more kids we can get into that brand new, beautiful school that's just across the street, the better.
Appreciate that.
If you want to throw in some bike lanes, that would be great, but that's just icing on the
the
cake.
bike situation. Did you have a question yet? I remember. I know Moshe did. Did you?
I said about lighting. I just asked that was a quick question.
If you want to go, and then Michael, I think, had a question online, and then come back to Moshe.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna just write my email up here in the meantime. I don't know if this question's for me or for him. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm up?
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I don't think we need housing any way we can get it. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's a very fine project. I think it's a terrible location. As our neighborhood, people have worked hard. They've lived there a long time, and we didn't expect to be on a densely populated street all of a sudden with 90 new units. And we're concerned about the environment, and we're concerned about the schools and the traffic and all the other concerns that people brought up. And say what you may, pulling out of that West Park or that street is a dangerous proposition now. It's very dangerous. You can say what you want about sight lines, pull out of there some morning. There's sun glare, there's hills, there's turns. It's not safe. But we're concerned. By the way, you've already displaced people. There's about a half a dozen houses for sale in our neighborhood right now. Unprecedented, never been like that. And all of a sudden people said, I'm out of here. This is not a net benefit for Westview Terrace in our neighborhood. It's not, no matter how you spin that. It's a very nice looking facility and stuff. My opinion, it's in the wrong spot. Should be somewhere else. I want to just be on the record of saying I oppose it. All right, thank you.
Michael Pill. You're on mute.
Thank you. Is that Josh Levine I see in the front row?
Nice to see you, Mike.
I see Ellen Fryman though. Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
And John Furman. Okay, I'm an attorney and I've dealt with a lot of you folks. First of all, don't be bamboozled into thinking that housing is anything but a financial burden on a municipality. I also have a master's degree in urban and regional planning, and that is one of the basic maxims. Of course, it's nice to have kids. I don't care how much money you think you can get from the state. The demand for municipal services will offset the tax revenue from this property, and it will increase the existing financial problems for the town. Make no mistake about that. You need to read, people, Articles 8 and 12 in your zoning bylaw, because your comments will largely be ignored unless you specifically relate them to the special permit requirements and criteria in the zoning bylaw. You need to do your homework. What I also want to say is I have been retained at this point by one abutter, but I hope you, the developers, will pay very serious attention, more than you normally do, to the concerns of all the abutters, especially those who are willing to do their homework and study the special permit criteria. And I do want to credit the spokesperson for admitting, when he was put on the spot, that the company is here to maximize its profit. And the reason they want money from your Community Preservation Act is to further enhance their profit. They want all the taxpayers and the state to subsidize their project. How closely you folks listen, the developers, to the neighbors, including my client, will determine how involved I get. The more involved I am, the more I get to see esteemed colleagues, Josh and Ellen and John Furman. It's always nice to see you too. Thank you for recognizing me. Bye-bye.
Sounds like a strong maybe.
I just had a question, because of the complexity and the possibility of this being a long-term project throughout the town. As a kind of a nerdy question, do you have any idea of what the average maintenance costs will look like over those 50 years? Obviously countering like wildfires and tornadoes and earthquakes, but in general, an idea of what those costs would look like.
I'm not sure I understand.
For the property
owner?
Yeah. Because of the complexity, I don't know how that dynamic works, but
like, I don't see this as a very complicated project. Like, this is 3-story, buildings on Surface Park. Like, we do that. This is what we do. Obviously we put together, operating budget with our maintenance payroll and, budgeting for fixing things and reserves, et cetera. And then if God forbid, there's a God forbid, that's, we have insurance. I think John mentioned, maintenance of catch basins and drainage areas. I mean, that all is information we know, right, going into the project. And then we budget for the operations so that we know that, when we open the building, there's a manual for the superintendent. Hey, every however many days, however many days, John's firm tells us to, you're out clearing the basins. So
you don't really know the definite number, but you have an idea of what it might be.
Well, you threw a lot in there, like tornadoes and wildfires.
Yeah, I guess those are like apocalyptic individual, but like the general, year-to-year maintenance of how much is a new roof going to cost? How much should you expect to have to pay out of that?
I mean, we budget. I'd have to get back to you on that. Like, we have a reserve budget, and then just sort of I have to break out the line item.
Yeah, that's a fair answer.
It's in the hundreds of thousands.
And that would be in your budget.
Absolutely, yes.
Or
not the city's.
No, it's in us. That's on the ownership.
Or the purchaser who comes after you.
Sure. Yes.
Thank you.
2 questions. One, as a neighbor of Vadim's, and Vadim is a good friend, and we look at each other across your driveway regularly as I mow the grass. He and I have different perspectives, which is good. Everybody in the world has their right to different points of view, and that's hopefully what makes us. So question, as probably the abutter that has the least amount of buffer between the whole building and their backyard, would you be willing to consider dropping a building or relocating a building? Because I believe the northmost building will basically in the wintertime when there's no leaves in the trees be 100% visible from my backyard. So for instance, would you be willing to flip the clubhouse around to where that building is, or consider some other alternatives to the layout right now that may not be maximizing what you can do with the property, but reduce the impact on a specific abutter?
I'd say tonight, this is the plan we have, but I hear you.
Following up on that, I know you had indicated to me that you're planning to submit to the planning board next week. Is that still your plan?
That's our current plan, yes.
So I would guess that between now and then, I won't see any changes between what's on the sheet tonight.
This is our current thinking, yes.
Second question.
Knowing that we have a whole continued process to go through, yes.
Second question, you haven't heard too much about it tonight, but you may have heard it before. wildlife and wildlife impacts is a big concern because it clear, all of us can tell stories of the wildlife that we've seen overhead going through our yards, going from all the way from Nonotuck, all the way from the pond, all the way up to Route 10 to the wetland areas that are through there. As part of helping to try to protect that, it's good to see that you're reserving that space at the top of the hill. And revegetating some of that space, so you're getting some of the forest land back. Would you be willing to put that in some type of a permanent land preservation and possibly team up with landowners like myself? I own a half acre of land that's undeveloped that I'm never going to develop. And I would be very willing to put it in permanent land preservation so that it's never developed.
We'd have to look into that, Bob, because I'm not sure if that removes the land from the land area, which affects the number of units we can construct.
I'm certain there are ways to protect it permanently.
I would say I'm not looking for loopholes to come back later and build more. So if that's like a thing that's done, we're open to the idea.
I'm never going to build anything on a half acre next to me, but I very much want to make certain that it never gets altered so that the wildlife that are there can continue to be there. And if you were willing to do something like that in your undeveloped property, and maybe some of my other neighbors that have property that aren't, you know, don't fully utilize the property, might be able to join in this or be willing to join in the effort as well. And create something to last forever.
It's a nice thought. I don't have I mean, this is what we're proposing. I'm not trying to keep any loophole or come back later or have somebody come back later. On the other hand, like there's a zoning code and like we're subject to it and everybody's going to be subject to it. So I'd want to think about it, but it certainly understand the concept. Yeah, sure.
I heard the answer.
I think you had a question.
Yeah, how much are the butters properties losing in value on all of these projects?
Great question.
So, I mean, the answer, which nobody's gonna believe or want to hear, is there is absolutely no evidence that housing developments decrease housing values. In fact,
nobody looked at it.
no, it's been, you think our industry hasn't studied it? We've studied it. You're not the first person to ask. And if anything, like more activity, kids, neighborhood, people, believe it or not, want to live near other people. So, you know, I believe none, obviously. If anything, I think there's a potential for increase, but as you have a more, you know, add certain vibrancy, et cetera, but
How'd you become aware of that property anyway?
the Serial family decided to,
They
they wanted to
contacted
sell
you?
it. They had hired a broker who we got connected to. It was, you know, I think it was publicly listed. I'm not really sure what the order was at this point, but I guess we haven't heard from either yet, so.
Just two questions. So I just want to clarify where that property extends out to South Street, that
Yes.
will not be a driveway?
No, we're proposing that it's, at this point, we're, at one point, it had been shown as a driveway. At this point, we're only proposing a sidewalk.
And the other question was,
Multimodal, ADA accessible, bike accessible.
So sidewalk, not a driveway.
Not a driveway, not for you.
No fire department access. So I thought they were looking for a second means of access.
They were, but unfortunately, Captain Constantino has been out and I have not been able to get in touch with him to discuss that. So we ran a model along that and that slope is somewhere around 12 to 12.5%. When you come in off the level South Street and the truck tips the bumper,
Driven up there with trucks.
the bumper drag. So under our development, when we had a driveway there, the roadway got steeper. So they definitely can't get up it. So
I did read his comments and he was looking for that to be a emergency access.
he was, and then unfortunately, he's been out and I haven't been able to discuss it with him. So we're going ahead without it. We're putting a walkway in there and that's one of the things on our items.
second question I had, could you possibly set up like a website somewhere with FAQs where you can address a lot of these common questions?
Sure, yes, maybe not all the time, but yes, I mean, and it's impossible to read, but I'll go over in red time, but I'm also happy to just take questions. I understand people want to hear, maybe want to hear other people's questions or, I mean, we have a sign-in sheet. If folks want to put their emails, I can put it and want to hear from us, happy to send, you know, as we get questions, I can just send that to that list if folks want to sign up or leave their emails.
That's that. Here we go.
Okay, I forgot to give you my name before.
Maybe remind me.
Okay, Marcia Messer. I'm on the top of Westview. Can you, I've poured over your website.
Sure.
And can you point me to some developments that you've done that are similar in size in a similar community like East Hampton? Especially I'm curious about the change in the population density that we're going to experience in our little neighborhood.
So the one that I think is closest, so unfortunately, we haven't been active in, this part of Massachusetts yet. Hopefully it'll be the first of, more than one. The one that immediately there's two that immediately come to mind. One is in Bethlehem, New York, southwest of Albany. It was, farmlandish area that we recently completed. And then the other one that's coming to mind is, and it's a similar size, a few fewer units. And then another one that comes to mind is the one in Saratoga Springs. It's larger, it's 200 homes, but it's in a neighborhood that is seeing some development, and obviously a town that, that's a town that is obviously known for horse country, and following COVID in particular, saw a huge increase in both economic activity, but also cost of living and home prices, and burden on people being able to live and work there, especially for schools, services, tourism, and definitely embraced housing as part of their solution. So I'd say like that, that definitely, not to draw too many comparisons, but I'd say like Saratoga definitely is a community that reminds me of that.
So particularly
On the screen too.
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, just reminding you that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Was that-
that's
was that-
fine, excuse me, yeah.
Okay.
Solar panels.
So the property will be solar ready. We had mentioned that we're evaluating solar, whether we can feasibly do solar. We would like to. That's always my inclination. It would be on the roofs. To the extent we can do solar, the buildings will be ready to accept solar. To the extent we are able to make solar feasible, it would be on the roofs of buildings, not carports with solar are extraordinarily expensive because of the steel required to make them not fall over.
My name is Kathy Zanarovich, and I didn't mean to remind Kyle to be grumpy shirt. That was a coincidence. We've been here for a long time. My husband grew up in East Hampton in this area. I think it's a terrible placement. And I'll tell you that as far as the schools go, I don't remember if you remember the override, I don't know, what, 15, 20 years ago? Remember when they were going to cut 28 teachers, something like that? My kids didn't have books. You got the books on Monday. I had them on Tuesday. The teachers were going to cut. We went to battle. I was a cheer coach. I mobilized more little people you've ever seen before. And then the teachers came back. And now we have this big, beautiful building, and you can walk through the ambient lighting, but we just paid because we don't have enough school money for the schools. And you say more people, more money. Well, I have to call bullshit on that, because there's going to be a lot more kids. You're not going to hire the teachers. We're not going to have the money for the teachers, and we're going to be paying more taxes again. As it is, our schools, they're not doing that great. It's not the teachers' fault. It's because it was piss poor planning. And to take a big development like that and throw it in the middle of a country type setting and all these homes that finally were settled, I just think it's a ridiculous idea. And on a personal note, I hate your smile. It's kind of painful for us, and every time we ask hard questions, you look a little smug. So now I am grumpy. I'm just laying it out there. And I also want to know how it got to the public before it even got to a planning board, and it was already discussed, and we've been hearing it's a done deal before it's ever gone anywhere. So I'm going to be in touch with Michael Pill to find out what more information he has. I think this is a great idea. I've worked social services my whole life. I've low-income housing, dear to my heart. I just don't think it's a great place for it. Not because I don't like the people, because you're putting high rises in the middle of the country, little country setting. Sorry, we're field mice.
I think it smells nice.
Wow. Where he puts it in, maybe. If somebody wants a question. go ahead.
I do have a question.
I'm not even sure where to go from here.
Someone online that wants a question.
Sure, I think we have a
Are there
city
elevators?
councilor online. We're not proposing elevators.
So all the ADA compliant.
The ground floor units are fully compliant, yes.
5 of them specifically.
That's probably against some kind of regulation too.
Do you want me to go to the,
Yes, please.
somebody suggested that online. Okay, we have our, I think, city councilor McQuaid is online.
Thank you. Kind Jerry Mark McQuaid. I'm an at-large city councilor. I have a couple comments. I again just want to applaud Jonathan and the other presenter for the thoroughness of the presentation and how they've really fulsomely addressed a lot of the concerns that I think have been brought up. You know, in general, I'm in full support, excited support of this project. I think this is much needed. Again, I want to politely but firmly push back on a couple of things that were said by other people of the public. As someone who professionally studies land use and housing policy and also holds a graduate degree in public policy and focus on regional planning and housing issues, this housing is not at all going to be a financial burden on our community. More housing has a litany of benefits for our community. I think Councillor Newton enumerated one of them very well, in that the way that our school funding formula works is that the more students that we get, the more state investment we get in our school system. So that's a great thing. I think in terms of the sewer system and the water, I'm overjoyed to see the investment of the developer in improving our sewer. I live in the Plains, though I don't have any water pressure issues, so I'm not really sure. But I'm really overjoyed to see that investment in improving the pipe diameter. I think that in addition to that, more ratepayers in our sewer system allow for those fixed cost improvements to cost less for individuals across the city. So there's another benefit, and I could speak about this for 25 minutes, and I won't put you all through that, but I just want to really push back on the idea that this is going to be a drain in our city resources. I think in addition, there's a ton of social benefits to having stable housing that is deeply affordable and actually supports the working population in our city and working families in our city. I think that is critical. And again, we are in a housing crisis statewide. We need hundreds of thousands of units statewide. We also need thousands of units just in Hampshire County. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us to bring some of those units to East Hampton, bring some of the state investment to East Hampton. So again, I just want to express my emphatic support for this project and thank the developers and the presenters for putting together such a comprehensive package. And again, I'll just add that our zoning supports this. This is what our land use strategy and our zoning has prescribed for that area. We, the developers are not seeking a special permit. They're only subject to site plan review for this project, as far as I'm aware. So I'm really positive about this project. Based on what I'm hearing in terms of the thoroughness of the work that they've done to address a lot of the concerns, I'm really feeling good overall. Thank you.
Anybody hasn't had a chance to ask a question? Sure.
So Bethany Clark, 29 Westwood Terrace, right at the southwest corner of the development area there. So that thing in the corner is a catch basin? Can you,
Infiltration basin.
so something full of water.
Yes.
So are there any trees left between that and the property line?
There's a very small row left in there, but for the most part, that whole corner is cleaned out.
And any trees between that and the road?
Between down here?
Between the basin and the road?
Yeah, so there's a clump of trees that are left here, and then along this roadway here, where we are clearing, our landscaping plan is.
Southwest corner. No, it starts grading, getting graded.
Yes.
So straight from our property will be the basin and then the road with no trees or anything to buffer.
Yes, well, it'll grass. It'll be a sloped area. There'll be a level bench area, 15 feet wide, which is needed for maintenance. So what you will see is it looks like that bench is about 6 feet tall. And then a 15-foot flat area, and then another 6-foot bench in the top of the basin.
So is
It's
the,
grass.
All grass, yep,
is the basin like in the ground?
it is.
So is there like fencing? Like what's the,
Our standard is to put fencing around that from a safety perspective. And you can't really tell on this just because of the scale, but that benched area has an impermeable core in it. So what it does is it prevents the water that's in the basin when it's full from migrating horizontally, and it hits that clay core and then drops down so it won't blow out and have a failure of the basin. The basins are designed to drain within 72 hours, so it's not like it's full of water all the time.
so we'll see.
It's grass when it's empty.
It's grass.
We're looking at what our property view would look like in our privacy.
And
So
like, we have little kids.
Yeah.
Are they gonna like fall in the water? Like, or is it like a chain link fence instead
No,
of
they won't,
beautiful woods?
they definitely won't be able to fall in the water because there'll be a 4-foot fence around all of the basins that you see here.
So also just in that same idea, we're one of the only properties right there that doesn't have a fence already surrounding the property. So right now, that's where like all of the bears, all of the deer, all of the everything come straight from the woods, well, from like the park across the street through that wooded area, which is now going to be completely cleared. And then into our yard across the street to Tom and Barbara's and to the protected wetlands on the other side of the street. So in terms of like the nature corridor, that is the main spot. And now it's going to be like a fenced basin and a road.
Well, the fence doesn't go all the way down. The fence is not going to prevent any wildlife from passing through that corridor. That is still open. The fence is on top where the basin is. So everything down below that is still grass. It's going to be mowed, maintained. Wildlife is free to pass.
So there's not a fence between my
Maybe you
property
could
and the
just point
basin?
it to where the fence, maybe you could point it out a little bit.
Yeah, so this open
Maybe I can
space,
kind of zoom in this a little
this
bit.
open space, I think it'll just get cloudy. This open space here, that's the actual basin. That's where the water is. And then the fence will be at the top of the berm, which is right about here.
What's the gray?
The gray is that's the impermeable core. And so all of this is open. They can go this way, they can go this way. There's nothing stopping any wildlife migration going on.
What does the impermeable core look like?
You won't see it. It's buried.
It's underground.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, that downhill slope on the infiltration basin, is that filled? You basically.
I don't remember whether
creating a
we're.
berm, effectively a dam during a flooding condition?
I don't remember, Bob. We did an earthworks calculation on this.
Suspect it may be that it's.
Yeah,
a
we
raised
were
berm.
cutting that basin in. So I think the basin was cut in, but the outside was built up. So I have to go back and look.
So it is raised. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get that last photo of the inside just for that. Yeah, somebody's interior there.
This is a community room,
Oh, okay.
but it's, you know, I'd say it's the
You got
finishes,
the
et
heater out
cetera.
of somebody's
representative.
garage there?
Sorry?
You got the heater out of somebody's garage? Is that what that is? The silver thing on the left?
Somebody thought that was a good aesthetic.
Yeah, good.
It's on the inside.
Not my house, it's okay. but- Okay, I'm done, thanks.
Tom, yeah.
Tom Orbiscus, West Park Drive. You've got 90 units, so how many residents can live there allow at one given time?
Sure. So the standard is 1.5 per bedroom functionally. So in a 1-bedroom, 2 people can live there. In a 2-bedroom, potentially 4 could live there and so on. So you can, everybody has to be related. Everybody has to be on the lease. We look at that obviously very closely. Everybody has to be vetted. We get to put on our, standards around, credit, criminal, et cetera, anything the state will allow us.
I'm just
What's that
wondering,
top number then?
Yeah.
What's just the number?
I mean, if a family of 6 wanted to move in,
Maximum capacity.
Yeah.
What's gonna be in there when it's full? How many?
I can give,
We
I
know the
can,
number.
I really don't because it
Should
varies
know
so
that.
much. There's no good answer. I mean, there's no solid
There is a
answer.
good answer. What you just said, it's two
It
person.
varies community.
Couple hundred up
Sorry.
there at one time, right? That could be a couple hundred
It could be.
or 400.
I
don't know.
really can't, I don't think the math works on 400, but it could be a couple hundred for sure. Every community is different. Every building is different. Every community is different. That's the fact. That is the fact.
So it's gonna be Silver Spring, Maryland in another 50 years here in East Hampton. These like you guys keep spotting little sections of trees and developments like that. I was
Not that
stationed down
familiar with
there and I lived in a place. There was 5,000 apartments and the buildings looked just like that. Lucky for me, I got a unit on the first floor on the outside, so I could just drive right out, but it got so big, it had its own schools, it had a life of its own. And a lot of other things go on besides fairy tales when you start concentrating that many people in one
Okay.
space.
Got it. We're not talking about 5,000 units, but appreciate
No, I'm just telling you that.
Can I ask a
Most have
question?
been waiting for a while, I think.
I'm just curious if there is either a systemic plan on y'all's end, on the company's end, or on the town's end. So this is for both the town and for the company to help the people who will be displaced during the construction.
So my understanding is that the owner has worked out those, he owns those properties, he has the leases with them, and that they're ending their leases in a given period of time. But there is also state law around relocation assistance and things like that. So we're certainly gonna follow all of that.
Thank you.
We got a long way to go, as you can hear. Sure.
I'm a renter in East Hampton, not in this area, but I can respect the quietness of this area in your neighborhood. Is there gonna be anything, because our town has no like noise ordinances? Are there gonna be any, that might be in your lease agreements?
Sure. I mean, we certainly have, quiet enjoyment restrictions on our leases, but it's hard to imagine there's not a noise ordinance, but.
I may be misinformed, but I thought there was a 10 PM noise ordinance in town.
That's what I thought.
Sorry, maybe misinformed.
I don't know.
There's a noise ordinance on, Kyle can correct me. There's a noise ordinance on short-term rentals, I think, but I don't.
There are statewide guidelines that our police can enforce if there are complaints specifically, but we do not have a local ordinance that would set like additional things above what the state restricts in its like health and building codes.
Do you want to go and then?
Sure. I mean, you mentioned displacement of some of the folks that are there, and I guess I'm wondering, is there a provision or the ability to prioritize East Hampton residents who fall under these income guidelines? I know there's some kind of a statewide.
My understanding is the state does not allow local preferences, but I'm gonna look into that. I'm definitely gonna look and confirm. I should be getting mixed up. Okay, cool. Yes, and then yes.
Did you say there was a requirement that like people occupying the same unit be related?
So everybody has to be on the lease and they all have to be part of everybody has to be on the lease. And they need to be part of a cohesive, that's a good question.
Yeah, so like say
Yeah.
you have a 2-bedroom apartment and you want to bring in a roommate.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that. That's a good point. I may have misspoken on that.
I think there's the East Hampton ordinances.
Yeah, so we just recently changed some of the zoning so that we are not considering it a blood-related family or like a step family, like a family unit. We're not, is anybody who lives together and cohabitates, so it doesn't need to be related. So that's pretty new in East Hampton, but that is the new ordinance.
There's somebody up there. There's someone with this question.
Right here. Okay, and then,
There's someone online also.
oh, wait, sorry, you had your hand up, and then we'll go here, and then back to Jay
It's almost 8
Thomas.
o'clock too, just reminding you.
There we go.
Mine's more of a general question. Just curious why you would spend the extra money for the community building?
That's part of what we do. It's definitely something we try to,
Only accessible to the people who rent there.
yeah, I mean, we, it's part of our sort of company practice is we like to, you know, build quality. It's part of why we try to build quality interiors and then have a community building that attracts people to the area, suggests that it's, you know, to the property, suggests that it's a quality place that people want to live. And it's sort of just part of how we are.
Is that where you would have like a property manager?
Yes, offices. We would have property management offices.
I just wanna, if I could make a quick note on one of the renters. My husband went and talked to one of the renters, and to date, anyway, he hasn't been offered any assistance with finding a place or anything like that. We should lose that.
Okay. Again, so far the CEOs have been handling that communication as we have.
Yeah, no, I was
process,
surprised
but-
when he told me that.
Sure.
That there'd been no effort made to help him regarding renting on the property.
I will reach out to the CEOs and make sure they're aware of all the requirements.
Timeline? I know it's gonna change. I know it's a draft, but there's gotta be one that you have out there.
Yeah. I mean, we are preparing to submit to the planning board. Pending that, we would like to submit to the state for our first attempt at funding later this year, end of the year. They just put out their timeline. And maybe, you know, maybe end of 2027, we would start construction. I think that would be the most optimistic, you know, if everything went apace. But it's a thorough process. I mean, it's a thorough process at every level.
How long would it take to actually finish the project?
Construction would be about, I think you'd see the first building open after about 16 months.
And how long
And 18 total. I think about 18 months, 18 to 20 months. Jay Thomas.
Hi, thank you, Julia. So, and I'm gonna address this to Counselor Jim McQuaid, Jim Roger McQuaid, since he spoke on an official capacity already. So what is the plan to ensure that the level of services that our city currently has, as in first responders and other government services, are going to be able to meet the demands of the increase of population? What are the plans, and can you guarantee that this will not increase our taxes?
No. If you want to put your email in the chat, I'm happy to make sure.
I don't want to put my email. I want an answer, because if I plan anything, there have to have been a feasibility study. I mean, you have to say, hey, we're going in this location. We got to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row here. So no, I want an answer. What is the answer?
Can't guarantee taxes anytime, no matter whether there's a development or not. The population of East Hampton is changing all the time. Like there's no.
So we're going to be basically subsidizing, is what
No.
you're saying, because you have to have a plan. Everybody has to have a plan. If I'm going to move somewhere, I have a plan. Somebody had to have looked at this. This is like an integral part of a community. Is it
And
not?
if I can just jump in here, this would qualify as new growth, so it'd actually be adding to our tax levy. So if anything, this reduces the potential for our community to need to seek another tax override in the future, because we're growing our tax base.
You already said we were only going to be getting $100,000 to $200,000 a year. That's not nearly going to be enough to cover that. Come on, I mean, be honest. Have you guys looked into this?
They don't care.
I don't think I understand the question, but is there other questions in the room?
What part don't you understand? I'll help you clarify it. When you grow a population, you have a level of services already being allocated for that population. Our population is rapidly increasing, okay? So you say, oh my goodness, okay, my refrigerator is only 4 foot by 5. Now I'm feeding 20 people. I got to get a bigger one before they move in, right?
And Julia, you're not in the room. I mean, I don't know if you're asking that to your electeds, to me.
To both of you, everybody who will answer me.
It's fundamentally not how cities work. I mean, you have fixed costs as a city. You have one mayor, you have one police chief, you have one fire chief. As your tax base grows, your marginal costs go down. But I'm not intimate, obviously, with East Hampton's finances. There are many, many communities across the state that are doing overrides. There are many communities across the region that have pension obligations, et cetera, that cause budgets to go up. But that feels like more of a city council meeting question, if I could.
Yeah, and if I can just quickly correct the record, what our population is actually not growing. It has been around 16,100 people, and it hasn't grown substantially since the 90s. What has been growing is our demand for housing, because more and more people are living alone and our household size has shrunken over time. So we really haven't seen a demand, or we have seen a demand in housing increase, but we haven't seen a significant increase in population at all.
Councilor Jamrock, we have 4 developments in place right now coming on board, right? We have a lot of them coming on board. Somebody has to have a plan.
Yes, we do have an affordable, we have a housing production plan. We also have a city master plan, and they're available on the city website.
Awesome.
I will go offline with you on
Okay,
this. That's not true.
Okay, we're gonna move on to an in the room question, please.
Yes, thank you. Are we able to look on your site now that you have plans a little bit further along to see more detail? For example, the retention basins and other parts of it, the driveway, with dimensions.
So, well, we don't have it online right now, but in the next week, when it gets submitted, I think the city
Puts it on their website.
Okay.
Once
So-
it's filed, it'll
So
be
wait a
available.
week, so it's not available yet.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me the dimension between the where the retention water is and that line where the parking is? How much woods out to the property lines on Westview Terrace? 20 feet, 10 feet, 30?
So you're talking Westview
Southwest
Terrace
corner.
here?
Southwest corner, yes, right there, yeah.
Right, so particulars of the zoning are that retaining walls are considered structures. And they require the retaining wall to be set at the building setback line. So because the units have the buildings have more than 6 units in it, all of the setback lines across the whole property have been increased from what they are under zoning to a minimum of 50 feet. So there is 50 feet between this tight spot here where the edge of the parking is.
Yes, exactly.
And so there's 50 feet at a minimum.
Okay, and then that 50 feet, then there's a retaining wall, is that accurate? Because you have to build up the terrain for the parking?
Yes, so the existing terrain, the existing trees, that all stays.
Right,
And then it's like, it continues to go up. So then, we chop it, we put a vertical retaining wall up there, and then we get to that same elevation.
Have you guesstimated the size of that retaining wall yet? Or?
It varies as we go further north on the site, it gets taller, but it's somewhere between 12 and 18 feet. And it varies as you go. Up here in the center where this is right here, there's no retaining wall there. It's at grade.
And it will be concrete or?
It's called I believe it's called a castle block. Is that right, Kevin?
The products like double wall.
Yeah, and so it has a face to it. And you're familiar with like the homeowner Home Depot retaining walls, which are small blocks. These are large blocks and they have cultured face to them and they stack up quickly.
Like along the bike path at East Works?
Not familiar with that.
Okay. I think
Kind of
maybe similar.
Yeah.
91.
That's a little like slow because I have.
Okay, I'm told we had a hard stop from the fire department at 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Are there any final questions?
In your rental agreement, do you allow subletting?
Definitely not. There's so many rules around income restrict, like it would put us into a tough spot. Nor short-term rentals. Another city ordinance around that. So.
I don't even know whether to ask this question or not. Will the tenants have to be American citizens?
I don't think so. No, I don't think there's a citizenship requirement. No, I'm sure there's not. At least not yet. Okay, well, my email is up there. I know the pen wasn't that great. I'd love to hear from you all. And I hope everybody will take a cookie. You don't have to like my face to take a cookie. But if you do, you can take two.
Is your email on the website also?
I'm not really sure.
Is it all caps on that?
It doesn't have to be. It's not case sensitive. It's jgertman@nrpgroup.